CNN has very different town halls. It's the NewsBusters podcast. I'm Tim Graham, executive editor of NewsBusters. Joining me today is Dan Schneider, MRC president, Free Speech America and External Affairs. And our special guest, Joe Concha, Fox News contributor, Washington Examiner columnist, and author of the bestseller, The Greatest Comeback Ever. But it's about the Trump campaign of 2024. It's not about the Bills versus the Oilers in 93.
That score was what? I think they were down.
Something
Don't tell me.
38-3, something 35-3.
35-3. That's right. Yeah. Frank Reich, University of Maryland, bought him back.
Yes. Tim Russert would never let you forget it.
This is true.
So CNN had a town hall on last night, a shutdown town hall with two socialists. We found that it was basically Twitchy called it a socialist palooza. Before we went into it, I said to Bill D'Agostino, our senior research analyst, hey, how many interruptions did Trump get in 2023? And let's compare that to what happens tonight. Well, the numbers are in. Trump got 113 interruptions, and Bernie and AOC got 9. In other words, Trump was interrupted almost 3 times a minute, and they were interrupted 0.15 times per minute. So it just gives you, just there, you get a great sense of, I think, what CNN thinks the CNN audience wants.
Yeah, that's a great point. And those numbers, when I go on the air later, trust me, I will be quoting you and giving you attribution warmly and accurately, 113-9. And it's not like, well, there were 2 different moderators. Like one was Jake Tapper and the other one was Kaitlan Collins. These were both moderated by the same moderator in Kaitlan Collins, who once worked for, the Daily Caller?
Yes.
She's going Fox a lot. You know, she's like Oliver Darcy with longer hair. Like just completely... on this transformation, I guess.
She's going to be very insulted by that comparison.
Yeah, I got to sort of bring the temperature way down on this because this is the left's tactic. Mm-hmm. They can't beat Charlie Kirk in a debate. They can't stand to have conservatives express our point of view. So cancel culture has to silence us. The media can't stand to discuss stories that have a conservative bent. They dare not platform, so they silence through omission. This, the numbers are startling, but not surprising. This is their tactic.
Yeah.
It's not surprising. And AOC, she has never sat down for an interview with Fox News, which, we keep hearing about how, tough she is and how she really brings the fight. No, she goes to the friendly confines of CNN, MSNBC, and your average podcast that she knows she's never going to be challenged on. And I would think that a pretty good time to interrupt AOC last night was when she said that Deloitte, which at last check, because my dad is an accountant, that's an accounting firm. And she said that they were poisoning waterways. You would think that Kaitlan Collins would jump in there and be like, well, how could that be? They don't deal with chemicals in any way, shape, or form. But no, just let it right go. To your Dan's point, bias of omission.
There's no fact checking in real time when it's their side. I mean, this is what, we could go back to Margaret Brennan in the vice presidential debate, that she had to jump down Vance's throat, but there was nothing the Democrat could say. In fact, the one that the talk radio guys are pulling out today, I guess it was Chris Plant, was AOC said, drinkable air. We need air that's drinkable. And she was not interrupted. Excuse me. Everything is, we know what you meant.
Yeah. I remember when AOC was on CNN with, who's married to John Avlon? And her.
Yes.
Margaret Hoover.
Margaret Hoover.
Yeah. And Margaret, said, well, are you willing to give President Trump any credit for instance, unemployment being as low as it is? And this is during Trump's first term when it was like 3-point-something%. And AOC answered by saying, well, unemployment's only low because people are working 2 jobs, which I'm certain that's not how unemployment works.
No.
It's like you have more jobs that brings down the number. So it always has been an adolescent, somebody you cannot take seriously. Remember in 2019, she said that the world only had 12 more years before it would just become a fiery inferno. So I guess we only have about 5 years left at this point. And she's just never called out on anything. And yet when you hear 2028 talk for the nomination, you hear Gavin Newsom or AOC. and not too many other people. I mean, could you imagine like her at age 35 being the commander in chief of this country? I couldn't. But then again, she's not going to get pressed by the press. So maybe she does breeze to the nomination. And then who knows? Stranger things have happened, especially if the economy is going the wrong way. Then suddenly socialism would look a lot better. But again, this is somebody who's considered a presidential contender. And I just can't get my head around that.
Well, you mentioned commander-in-chief with AOC. Wasn't it Margaret Hoover who asked, I think she was then Congressman-elect AOC, about Palestine, and AOC had to start giggling with embarrassment that she said, "Well, I'm not a foreign policy expert." She didn't know anything about the Middle East policy. At least she didn't seem to be able to articulate a point of view.
Yeah, you can't run for president like that. I mean, Herman Cain, one of the moments where you knew Herman Cain wasn't going far was that somebody asked him about Libya, and he didn't know where that was. Libya. So
999.
Yeah. So it is interesting. It is interesting, Joe, that I don't know if you saw it, but yeah, Zohran Mamdani was on Fox. AOC can't do it, but Zohran Mamdani can. And on the clip I really enjoyed was when she asked him, should Hamas put down their arms? And he really didn't say no, that they should.
Do you believe that Hamas should lay down their weapons and leave the leadership in Gaza?
I believe that any future here in New York City is one that we have to make sure that's affordable for all. And as it pertains to Israel and Palestine, that we have to ensure that there is peace. And that is the future that we have to fight for.
But you won't say that Hamas should lay down their arms and give up leadership in Gaza.
I don't really have opinions about the future of Hamas and Israel beyond the question of justice and safety.
Yeah, he goes, I have no opinion on that. Oh, boy. But you are okay to globalize the intifada. That's not good. And then, in Martha McCallum, conducted an interview, and she did the best she could. He just smiled his whole way through it. But when he talks about, I want to raise taxes to where you're paying 52% of your income to the government so you get a better return on investment in terms of crime and cleaning up the city. And, I just keep going back to the same question over and over again. If you're giving away, if you're collecting those kind of taxes, you'll never guess what millionaires will do if they don't want to pay it. They'll leave. They'll go down to Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. I guess it was interesting that he did go on Fox because he has such a comfortable lead. I thought he would just be risk adverse to this point, but he went on, and I guess he's confident in his ability. A and B, doesn't think that Curtis Sliwa and Andrew Cuomo are going to get the nomination. But again, the New York press is supposed to be so tough, and we barely have seen the local press here in New York press him on almost anything, and that's why he's up by 15, 20 points right now. He doesn't these things called follow questions, with the exception of Martha McCallum yesterday. You just don't see them with Mamdani like you don't see them with AOC.
AOC and by the way, a town hall with Marxists and socialists. Where is that town? I don't know where
Leningrad.
Leningrad. Okay, so CNN.
I was going to guess Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Maybe.
Berkeley.
But in that socialist town hall, AOC actually did say yes, should Donald Trump be given credit for this peace deal, before she then attacked him. But Zohran Mamdani was asked the same question. He absolutely refused to give Donald Trump any credit whatsoever for forcing Mamdani's core constituency into a peace treaty with Israel. And Martha pressed him a bit more and said, well, isn't it fair to criticize Hamas? Do you all remember Mamdani's response to that? It was, I can critique Hamas.
But I won't.
Tim, I can critique my wife's own performance on Fox if you want me to. I love her to death. But that's the best Mamdani can do about Hamas, to say that he can critique them?
Yeah, these sort of things sort of hang in the air. I got a kick out of Trump really hating the Time magazine cover of him, which is probably one of the better Time magazine covers for him, because usually it's like he's drowning or his orange face is melting into a puddle. But we can look back to just a couple weeks ago with their very favorable, suave Mamdani cover picture. There's just no doubt that he has gotten an incredibly soft press, including, yes, all these national people based in New York City. Now let's, since we're critiquing the local press, Joe, I'll put you on the spot. How about the New Jersey governor's race? Do we think that either the New York press or the New Jersey press are doing a decent job at the Mikey Sherrill scandals?
Not nearly as much as they should. I can't get over the fact that she made, I mean, it's so clear what she did. I'm an opinion person, so I can put this out here. I'm not reporting it as fact, but I'm pretty sure that when you make $7 million in just a couple of years, only after you're on the Armed Services Committee in Congress and you're buying and selling defense stocks and you're like Gordon Gekko meets Paul Pelosi, where, boy, the timing is incredible in terms of all these purchases and all the money that she made, that should be disqualifying. And we heard about it during the debate when Jack Ciattarelli brought it up, but she wasn't pressed on it as much as you would like. Like Charlemagne the God is like the only one who actually really asked her about it, and she had no good answer. She said, "Oh, I don't actually sell stocks." And meanwhile, the New York Times has a whole, expose on all the stocks that she bought over the years and how there are at least 12 conflicts of interest. That was a New York Times piece from a couple of years ago. I haven't seen much follow up on that. So between that and the fact that she couldn't walk during her own graduation ceremony in Annapolis at the Naval Academy, I mean, what's that about? And no one really presses her for her disciplinary records there as well. And then she's like a Mamdani, where she wants to give away all this free stuff, but has no idea how she's going to pay for it. So she used to lead by 20 points in the polls, and this was in June, and now it's essentially a dead heat. So Ciattarelli could win this, but again, New Jersey's a tough state. Donald Trump did well here, but still lost by 5 points. So I guess we'll see. But I think if a Republican's ever going to win, this is probably the best opportunity, despite the fact that the press isn't, again, I keep using this term, pressing her at all when it comes to scandals. That if this were a Republican, just like Jay Jones down in Virginia, boy, they would have been asked to leave this race by the editorial boards of the New York Times and Washington Post.
Yeah,
I mean, ago. But we're not seeing that there in Virginia either, guys. Where you guys are?
Yeah, I mean, Ciattarelli almost won the last time.
Yeah,
but this is what happens a lot of the time, where it's like, oh, who knew the race was this close? Because all the pollsters do their Des Moines Register thing and say, no, she's up 12, and then she wins by 3 or whatever. I mean, you always have to question where these races actually are.
Yeah, the best way to tell where these races are, there are two great ways. You either ask Dave Marcus what he's hearing in bars. Because as he goes to New Jersey and these places and just hangs out in bars and talks to people. Yeah,
and smokes.
And smokes. And the other way is to see when Barack Obama or Bill Clinton or these other kind of has-been leaders of the Democrat Party, when they suddenly are cutting endorsement clips for them. And that's what we just saw in this Virginia race. Barack Obama is stepping in with a few days beforehand. That is a clear sign that this race is truly neck and neck, when Obama feels like he's got to step in, put his own reputation on the line with Democrats to try to tip the scales.
We were shocked last night, that obviously NBC was going to do this story, or wanted to do the story about the Republican youth group chat, but then they threw in with it saying, oh, and by the way, then there's this Jay Jones thing. So we're at day 12 or something of them ignoring the Jay Jones story, since it broke a National Review a couple of Fridays ago. But there it was last night. I mean, it was there for about 28 seconds, but at least it was there. It's just sad that they had to pick up sort of the diversionary story. I think you'd think about it. This Politico did this story at the time, maybe to say, oh, well, let's put something on the other side of the ledger from these horrible Jay Jones text messages. Like, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, the young Republicans, they're not running for attorney general of a state at last check. So to equate the two, you'd see why they're doing it. But I think you guys had a study out when the Jay Jones scandal first broke, where ABC, CBS did not even give it 1 second of airtime. And again, it's like, picture somebody like, I don't know, Ron DeSantis had ever wrote something like that. I mean, again, it would just be the pitchfork four would run out of pitchforks as far as like all the protests that would be outside this person's home or office. So, I mean, wishing death not only on your opponent, but your opponent's wife, and then the 2 little kids as well, by calling him little fascists. It's amazing that he's still getting something like 43% of the vote, but it looks like he's not going to win that race. The question is, does he bring down Spanberger with him. And there's a very good chance of that. As you know, to Dan's point, Barack Obama, there he is cutting an endorsement here just a couple of weeks before this race. That tells you their internals tell you that Winsome Sears probably has a puncher's chance here. And again, what is essentially a blue state.
There's an ancient example of this. I mean, 2014, maybe that's not ancient in comparison to texts and messages that are embarrassing. Elizabeth Lawton in 2014 on her private Facebook page disparaged what the Obama daughters wore to the Thanksgiving turkey pardon that got like 11 or 12 minutes on these newscasts.
Wow.
That's
a ton of time.
And she got out. She had to resign from this congressional office she was working for. And I always stick to that because it was like, this was how much they loved the Obamas, is that you're not allowed on your private Facebook page to say, I don't like your outfit at the turkey pardon.
Just like the tan suit. Remember what a controversy that was.
Yeah,
right?
they pretended that was a scandal. I still don't understand. I don't remember any of us having a fit over the tan suit.
I have a tan suit. I have no problem with tan suit. You're right. The Obamas are so protected. And then here you have the former president doing an interview this week where he lamented that the FBI and the DOJ, it all seems like it's being weaponized, and that never happened under him. And of course, I don't know who was interviewing him, but I even
Mark
like
Maron, I think.
Who was it?
Mark Maron.
Mark Maron. Okay. You'd think like Mark would be like, yeah, but didn't you weaponize the IRS to go after conservatives? Didn't you spy on James Rosen, who was a Fox News White House correspondent at the time, called him a flight risk, spied on his parents? Didn't that happen? And you could go through 100 other different examples of weaponization of our justice system under Obama. But there he is, just sitting back, acting like it never happened under him. So, yeah, it's nice to be a Democrat, isn't it? I mean, where you don't have to deal with any sort of pushback. And when it does happen, you see what happened with Katie Porter in California, where just a couple of follow-up questions, and she could not believe that she was being asked a question and then being followed up with it, and even called out the reporter for doing so. And then even Nancy Pelosi, when she was asked, hey, is AOC running this party? Because she said to Republican lawmakers that they could come and negotiate with her in her office directly at any time. And Pelosi loses it. Like, they're not used to it. And I just would think that if you want to stand out and actually, make yourself the story to a certain extent. I know reporters aren't supposed to do that, but just be a contrarian once in a while and ask a Democrat a tough question. I guess the fear is, guys, that they're not going to get that next contract if they're not doing exactly what the Democratic Party wants. And I think we saw that with Dasha Burns, right, a couple of years ago, where she said that John Fetterman was having trouble having basic conversations when, he was still recovering from his stroke. And people were like Swisher, excuse me, were calling for her to resign from NBC News for simply pointing out what was very obvious. So I think that's why Biden got away with, his brain turning the applesauce years ago for as long as he did, because I think so many reporters were afraid to call the White House out on this out of fear that, they're probably not going to get that next contract. And that's what helps rule this business at this point. It's a shame.
So did you guys see the clip of Pelosi? I think it was yesterday, where some intemperate reporter asked her about why she failed to call in the National Guard on January 6th. And I guess the House committee that's been investigating this now is going back into that. And Nancy got very upset.
Why did you refuse the National Guard on January 6th?
Shut up. I did not refuse the National Guard. The president didn't send it. Why are you coming here with Republican talking points as if you're a serious journalist?
Shut up.
Yeah. She literally yelled at her to shut up.
She screamed, shut up.
And then she said, why are you here with your Republican talking points pretending you're a journalist? And you're like, this is basically our critique of a lot of journalists with Democrats, is that they're basically feeding them the talking points they want to be fed. Pretty much any interview with Barack Obama, we saw them, Mr. Obama, wouldn't your mother be proud of you?
What enchants you most about The Office, right?
Yes.
That was Jeff Zeleny, I think, over at CNN. Wow, I shut up. That's amazing. So did Brian Stelter get on the air right away and talk about how that was a chilling attack on the free press?
Yeah, it's not right.
Stand for it?
I don't believe she was compared to Hitler, Lenin, Stalin, and Pol Pot for saying something negative.
Yeah, but look, I got to expand this a little bit, because we see how the Democrat Party and legacy media, these traditional big corporate media outlets, essentially, collaborate to make sure they're all on the same talking points. But it's also social media that's jumping in and AI powered. So the American public knows that they can't trust legacy media, but now Google and Meta and Apple, they take the content from NPR and the Washington Post and they sift it through their little algorithms and then drive it straight into the bloodstreams of Americans. So we're in the middle of this shutdown, and these AI chatbots blame Republicans for the shutdown, or some of them, like 3 of the 6 big ones, blame Republicans, claiming, well, Republicans have all 3 branches of Congress. But if you ask these same chatbots who was responsible for 2013 shutdown, well, it's Republicans because they did not have all 3 branches of government.
And I think it's the same that we've been talking about, how the chatbots wouldn't give Trump credit for the Middle East peace deal.
Right. That it was ChatGPT, I think, that actually said that because Joe Biden bombed the Iran nuclear reactor and put pressure on Hamas, that Joe Biden is responsible for the peace deal.
Computers are dumb.
But they're not dumb, right? These AI algorithms are drafted by human beings, and they're trained on they're trained only on the content that human beings say. Yeah, let's feed this into the system. So it's the New York Times, it's the Washington Post, it's NPR, it's left-wing swill, and this is not conjecture. We actually have all the list of all of the media outlets that have contracts with all of these companies, and 95% of the media contracts with these AI companies are left-leaning and left-wing media outlets.
Well, I mean, that's what they consider reliable. The reliable sources are reliably liberal. Joe, the News Nation town hall was, of course, more a bipartisan affair, including it had multiple hosts from different directions. One of the funny moments in that was Bill O'Reilly asking he asked, I guess, Senator Fetterman if Kamala Harris could have gotten the peace deal. And Fetterman gave a fairly political answer. He said, I don't know, she isn't president, but he did give Trump the credit. He said if you ask the hostage families, they obviously credit Trump. And then, of course, Stephen A. Smith said, no, Kamala couldn't have done it. And Chris Cuomo said, it's a silly question.
Oh, boy. Well, Fredo's got to be Fredo. I guess things haven't changed over that much. And quite frankly, it's an excellent question, right? The hypothetical. What if Kamala Harris didn't lose every swing state, the popular vote? Republicans won back the Senate, held the House, and yet she's out there saying that she was the most qualified person to ever seek the presidency. I mean, this is unbelievable stuff. Or, it was the closest election that we have seen this century, where she's off by about 5 elections, right? So it's just incredible. You got to think that this book tour, while she's made money, I'm sure, probably didn't need the money, and I can't see her running for president again. I think even the liberal press probably has no appetite for another Kamala run. I guess we'll see. But Fetterman, it's amazing because you read in Axios today that the knives are out for him in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. People are going to primary him from the left, like a Connor Lamb. And we saw those stories a couple of months ago where people were questioning his health. And is he healthy enough to be in the Senate when everybody had no problem when he had a stroke afterwards? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that is a very interesting story. And yes, Fetterman now has become the new, I guess, Joe Manchin of a sort. All the ways they were charmed by him when he was running against Dr. Oz, it's all dropped away as they cannot stand him. Or let's say maybe he's the Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski figure on the Democrat side.
No, he is simply a traditional liberal. He's not conservative. He doesn't lean right. I don't understand these terms when you talk about members of Congress like conservative or moderate, because it's various views. That the thing about Fetterman is he's a traditional liberal. He's a 1980s, 1990s liberal, and today's Democrat Party, especially its leadership, they cannot countenance somebody who's not a socialist.
Yeah, when we used to do the American Conservative Union ratings. And what's the other one, Dan, that you think we should all be doing instead?
Well, I actually used to oversee
Yes.
the ACU.
It was reliable
ratings.
when you oversaw it.
But that ACU ratings team left the organization and founded a separate thing called ILA, Institute for Legislative
That's it.
Accountability.
But even so, Manchin really did have a voting record that was pretty moderate. But he was probably at an ACU of what, 28 or something?
Yeah, 28.
Whereas
out of 100, 28 out of 100.
Right. The real range, the moderate Republicans have like a 10. If they get to double digits, they're a centrist.
Today?
Yes.
Well, look, it used to be that they were across the complete spectrum, 0 to 100, and you would even see some Democrats in the 60s, 60%.
Southern Democrats, Western,
or Minnesota.
You would have, and you had Connie Morella, who I think had a 36 as a Republican, liberal Republican.
But today, the Democrats almost exclusively are below 10%, and hover in the 5% range mostly. 5%. The hard left.
I was making this point, Joe, about Bill Bradley. Bill Bradley, they treated when he ran against Al Gore. He was the centrist or the moderate, and his ACU was like 6.
I remember that. Yeah, that was 2000, right? The lockbox, Al Gore. Yes, that was.
Or when Tim Kaine was the running mate for Hillary Clinton, and they were saying, "Oh, he's a moderate." His voting record was actually, and I mean this very literally, was to the left of Bernie Sanders. But the media all said he was a moderate. Why? Well, he's from Virginia. That was the only evidence that he was a moderate, that he was from Virginia.
Purple State. And Kamala, too, right? They did that study when she was in the Senate. She was by far the most liberal member of the Senate. Yet we had a media that, when she was installed as the candidate Soviet style, tried to paint her as a moderate, where she flipped on every single one of her positions and tried to go to the center. Fortunately, it did not work. But what can you say? I guess you guys are probably often asked this, like, well, will the media ever change? Will they try to get back to the center? And I just keep going back to two instances that tell me absolutely not. With Chris Licht and CNN, when he tried to push them at least somewhat towards the center, gave Donald Trump a town hall. And then the inmates like Jake Tapper and Anderson Cooper revolted to the point where Cooper goes on the air the night after the Trump town hall in 2023 and said, "I know what you saw was disturbing last night, and I don't blame you if you never watch this network again." I'm like, what? How does somebody get away with telling their viewers, don't watch us again? And then Licht was gone a couple weeks later, and then MSNBC tries to hire one Trump person, like semi-Trump person, Ronna McDaniel.
Yeah.
And he lasted 48 hours. So every time you say, these organizations would try to go to the center, are they going to do it? No, because the inmates run the asylum, not the actual executives for the most part, except for Fox, where our executive team's pretty strong.
I've got a question for both of you. You both are media experts. I do First Amendment, free speech, big tech. Is there anybody in the media with thinner skin than Jake Tapper?
I think a lot of them have thin
if you've ever
skin.
been subject to the Tapper DM, those are always fun. When I was at the Hill, I was a reporter and I covered media, and he would jump into my DMs like almost every week. Like, hey, you didn't bring up the fact that I finished, first in the 18 to 49 demo for the first 15 minutes of the show, like stupid stuff. You're like, dude, what? Get out of here! Like, what are you doing? And apparently, he did this with everybody. So I don't know.
We certainly have received critiques from Mr. Tapper.
Just like Mamdani can critique Hamas.
But you know what? The way we look at this is to say, when Jake Tapper does something decent, we will notice it. I explicitly said when the Tapper-Thompson book came out, we need a book like this that chronicles what happened and who is responsible for hiding Biden's decline. I'm sure you could still say that book is not as harsh as it could have been. And it's absolutely true that Tapper and Thompson weren't this way before the book came out.
They actually could have quoted somebody instead of just have 132 anonymous sources.
Yeah, I didn't like the victimization that went on it. Like, the press, they didn't get it wrong. They were lied to by the White House. Like, you needed to tell you what was going on with Biden. I wrote a book 3 years ago about, the elevator not going to the top floor anymore with Joe Biden in 2022. It was obvious during the 2020 election. So, yeah, it could have been worse. But at least somebody actually did write it, and it did pretty well. It didn't do as great as you would think with all the attention that it got. They
did a ton of interviews, and they did some with did Megyn Kelly, I think. I mean, they did a bunch of interviews. We didn't get them on the podcast here, but the point being that we have with Tapper given him credit when credit's due. We try to do that with everyone. When you do a story that upsets the liberals because it's balanced or truthful, we're going to point that out as well. You know, got to call balls and strikes.
You do, and that's why I hate it when somebody will say something. Well, NewsBusters is like Media Matters of the left. No, it's not. Of the right, I should say. Media Matters is an evil activist organization that presents news in the most dishonest way you could possibly imagine. I don't even read it. I haven't for years, but once in a while something will pop into my feed. I'm like, well, that's just not accurate. So yeah, to make the comparison between NewsBusters, MRC, and what Media Matters does, sorry, it's night and day.
Well, to be fair and balanced, they don't like being compared to us. They started by explicitly comparing themselves to a version of us, and then they quickly backed out of that.
Wait, I'm sorry. Media Matters. Oh, you mean that organization that the FTC is investigating for committing consumer fraud? That, okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was a little slow to think of which organization you were referring to.
That's just creeping authoritarianism, Dan. All right. So we'll look forward to Joe letting us know early in the morning sometimes on Fox. And his Washington Examiner column, and Joe Concha TV is the X account. So you got to follow that. And for everything about media bias, you got to come to NewsBusters once, twice, 24 times a day. Thanks for listening.